February 9, 2004, Maura Murray drove away from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, never to be seen again. Hi, I'm here, and today we're exploring the mysterious disappearance of Maura Murray. Maura was a 21-year-old nursing student and former cadet at West Point. According to friends and family, Maura was extremely responsible, dedicated, and intelligent. While at West Point, she received multiple awards for her performance. However, it was said that the regimented schedule and strict policies of West Point didn't agree with Maura, and she transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst. On Monday, February 2nd, 4 days before she disappeared while working her campus security job, Maura received a call from one of her sisters. After hanging up, she burst into tears and asked for the rest of the day off. Nobody knew what her sister had said to her, but it must have been very upsetting. Then 2 days later, on Wednesday, February, Maura accidentally hit her dad's car with the front bumper of her own vehicle. It's unclear how the accident occurred, but it caused around $3,000 worth of damage. Although her parents, Fred and Candace, weren't angry, they did express their disappointment. Then on Thursday, February 4th, Maura emailed all of her professors informing them that she would be out of class until February because of a family emergency. After sending the emails, she withdrew $280 from her father's account, bought 2 liters of soda, a bottle of vodka, 12 Heineken beer, some nuts, and a bag of ice. She then placed a blanket, some pillows, and towels into the trunk of her black Saturn sedan. What happened next is unknown, but at 7:30 p.m., her car was spotted driving south on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, around 110 miles from her college. 20 minutes later, a bus driver saw her car crashed into a snowbank off the road with its airbags deployed. He pulled over to check on her, and he later told police that, although she seemed shaken, Maura appeared fine physically. She claimed that she had already called for help and would wait for the tow truck. The bus driver found this strange, as it was clear she had been in a crash, and there was nobody else around. He decided to wait with her, but when he went back to the car to ask her some questions, she had driven off. Just after 7:40 p.m., the bus driver contacted police saying that he believed the woman might be drunk. Police then arrived on the scene but found no trace of Maura. Her car was locked, and there was blood on the steering wheel. A full investigation ensued, but it was fruitless and no traces of Maura were ever found. What happened to Maura? The first question police wanted to answer was whether she had been drinking. The results of the toxicology report taken after the accident showed that she had alcohol and antidepressants in her system. However, it's impossible to determine how much she had drunk or if she was over the legal limit. Despite being under 21, police found 16 empty beer cans and bottles in her dorm room. Several of her friends admitted that she liked to drink. However, none of them thought she had a drinking problem. It was noted that since crashing her father's car 2 days earlier, Maura had been unusually quiet and withdrawn. A friend told police that she had never seen Maura so upset. According to state police, Maura had no known enemies and her grades were good, but her future was uncertain. At the time of her disappearance, she was failing one of her classes, although her professor felt that she would pass. Police believe that Maura may have planned to retake the class during the summer. According to the autopsy, Maura had no serious injuries. As the accident must have scared her, she probably walked away from the crash and got lost in the woods. She could have become disoriented, sat down, and fallen asleep. Unable to find her way out, she died of exposure to the cold. This is supported by the fact that the temperature dropped below 0 the night of the accident. But this theory doesn't explain why nobody has ever found her remains. Some feel that she was abducted that night, especially as she was on her own on a dark, narrow country road. If she had been walking along the road and a car pulled over, it's likely that she would have accepted a ride. Perhaps someone gave her a sedative in her drink, and that's why there were no signs of a struggle. But there is no evidence that any crimes occurred in the area at the time. Fred Murray, Maura's father, believes that somebody is responsible for her disappearance. He thinks it's impossible that she just vanished into thin air. There are just too many unanswered questions. He doesn't understand why her cell phone, which she never went anywhere without, was left in the car and why there were no signs of a struggle. While examining Maura's computer, investigators found that she had searched the internet to find out the effects of alcohol on pregnancy. This led police to wonder if she was pregnant and if the caller that upset her so much on February was actually the baby's father. She hadn't told anybody that she was pregnant, and police believe that she would have mentioned it to someone if she had been. So what do you think? Do you think Maura ran away? Was she abducted, or did she die in the freezing cold? Let me know your thoughts, and remember to stay tuned for more updates. The next day, Friday, February, Maura's roommate, Michelle, noticed that her bedsheets had been stripped off and put on the floor. The blankets were neatly folded on top of her bed. Her laptop and cell phone were sitting on her desk, and her purse was on her dresser. The police believed that she packed her things the night before she disappeared. Michelle hadn't noticed anything unusual, as she had been out late with her boyfriend. Also on Friday, February, Maura's mother, Candace, tried calling her 3 times. She usually called her every other day and was concerned that she hadn't heard from her daughter for almost a week. She left messages asking her to call her back. Around this time, Candace had no reason to suspect that something was wrong. That same day, a man called Candace from a payphone. He said that he had found a woman's coat and boots in the woods near the crash site. He also said that he had seen a girl matching Maura's description walking east on Route 112 towards Woodsville, New Hampshire, at around 9 p.m. on the day of the accident. By Saturday, February, the nationwide search for Maura had begun. Hundreds of students joined police in the search. Teams were sent into the woods surrounding the crash site to look for any traces of her. Searchers used infrared technology, but Maura's body remained missing. 2 days later, the Murrays held a press conference pleading for Maura to contact them. They said, "We want to personally thank everyone who has helped in the search for our daughter Maura. We are reaching out to Maura directly to please contact us so that we know she is safe. We love her and only want to ensure her well-being." As the days passed and there were still no signs of Maura, the situation started to seem grim. It was obvious that she hadn't just run away. Her friends and family knew her well, and she had shown no signs of wanting to disappear. On March 1st, Maura's credit card was used in Lancaster, New Hampshire. This was strange because she never went anywhere without her card and always carried her purse with her. The money in her account was running low, so she wouldn't have been able to go far. Police were confused as to why she would leave her belongings behind and not use her identification. A private investigator hired by the Murray family conducted their own search and took aerial photographs of the crash site. He believed that Maura could have fallen into a snow-covered crevice and suggested using cadaver dogs to search the area. After seeing the pictures, the police dismissed his findings and continued with their own investigation. Over the years, dozens of tips came into police, but none of them led to any significant discoveries. Some people claim to have seen her in Mexico, Canada, Alaska, and various European countries. Others claimed she was living under a false identity. One man even claimed that he had married her in Las Vegas, but when police checked the marriage license, it turned out to be fake. What makes Maura's case particularly puzzling is that there seems to be no logical explanation for what could have happened to her. The crash site was examined numerous times, but it was difficult to tell if she had stayed there or left soon after. Also, there was no evidence of a struggle. It's highly unlikely that she would have willingly left her car, especially as the roads were icy. Most people believe that she must have been shaken from the accident and somehow ended up in the woods. However, this would raise the question of why her remains have never been found. In 2017, New Hampshire State Police released a statement saying, "To date, there is no evidence to support that a crime occurred. Nevertheless, investigators continue to explore all investigative avenues, including the possibility that a crime did occur." Now I'd like to hand you over to our co-host, who is taking over the show today. He's going to be bringing you updates on this case and others every week. This was a look at the mysterious disappearance of Maura Murray. This case continues to haunt me, and I'm sure many of you out there feel the exact same way. This is the disappearance of Maura Murray. Maura was a dedicated student at the University of Massachusetts. She was smart, athletic, and full of potential. Professors admired her sharp mind. Friends described her as caring, and her family saw her as the kind of young woman who could achieve anything she set her sights on. On the surface, it looked like her future was nothing but bright. But behind that promising exterior, Maura's life was far more complicated than it appeared. In the months leading up to her disappearance, she struggled through a series of events that tested her strength and resolve. One of the most prominent theories suggests that Maura's life was deeply affected by the stressful and demanding environment of the nursing program she was enrolled in. Nursing programs are known for their rigorous schedules, heavy workloads, and high expectations. In fact, they're among the most difficult degrees to earn in the United States. If you've ever thought about going into nursing, then you know how competitive it can be. And once you get in, it's extremely hard to keep your grades up. Even the smallest slip could be enough to kick you out of the program. You're required to learn a huge amount of information while completing hundreds of clinical hours, all while being on call for patients in dangerous situations. It's not easy, and as you can imagine, stress levels tend to be pretty high. For Maura, this pressure may have been especially intense. While we don't know the specifics of her situation, experts suggest that she likely faced significant academic challenges. After all, several of her instructors later told investigators that she was the kind of student who would do well with extra support, implying that she may have been struggling. Friends and family also noted that she was incredibly hardworking and disciplined, traits often seen in those who feel the need to prove themselves academically. Given her personality, it seems plausible that she felt compelled to push through these difficulties, perhaps believing that quitting or falling behind was simply not an option. Unfortunately, such pressure can take a severe toll on mental health, especially when combined with other stressors. And in Maura's case, those additional stressors were piling up outside the classroom. She was experiencing personal issues, including strained relationships and unaddressed emotional concerns. According to those who knew her, she rarely opened up about her problems, and when she did, her friends later realized they might have missed crucial signs of trouble. Despite her cheerful nature, some noticed an undercurrent of sadness and pressure beneath her smile, suggesting that she was carrying a burden that others couldn't see. Furthermore, Maura's academic struggles may have been compounded by legal troubles. Just months before her disappearance, she was caught using a stolen credit card to order food from a local restaurant. Although the offense itself didn't seem malicious and may have been driven by desperation, it still carried consequences that could impact her future. This incident adds another layer of complexity to the picture of a young woman already under pressure. The mistake may have induced additional stress and fear about what lay ahead, especially given the potential ramifications for her studies and career. It's important to note here that none of these incidents alone paints a complete picture of Maura's state of mind. Each piece must be considered alongside the others to form a more accurate understanding of the challenges she faced. Nevertheless, when viewed together, these events indicate a young woman struggling to balance academic expectations with personal issues while also dealing with the consequences of a past mistake. And this is where things start to get even worse, because it's believed that these stressors played a role in a series of concerning incidents in the weeks prior to her disappearance. On February 5th, just days before she vanished, Maura was working her shift at the campus security desk when she received a phone call from her sister. Whatever was said in that conversation left her visibly shaken. Her supervisor recalled how she broke down into tears so intense that she could barely compose herself. The reason behind those tears has never been fully explained. Her sister later told investigators that she had called to ask Maura for advice on a boy she was dating, a seemingly mundane topic that turned tragic considering the outcome of the call. It makes you wonder why the news of a simple relationship issue would reduce Maura to tears. Was it the added stress? Had she been having a lot of bad days in a row? Or was there something else entirely happening in her life that we don't know about? Then, just 2 days after this emotional phone call, Maura borrowed her father's car and got into a late-night crash after a party. The accident didn't result in any injuries, but caused thousands of dollars in damage. It may seem like just another irresponsible mistake made by a college student, except for Maura, it was far from that. Her father, Bill, said that while he was disappointed, he reassured his daughter that accidents happen and the important thing was that she was okay. He added that he had no reason to think she was upset over the incident. However, some observers noted that she seemed shaken by the accident, which was out of character for someone typically described as responsible and level-headed. Adding to the mystery, Maura later apologized to her mother over the phone, saying that she knew she shouldn't have been out that night. This comment hints at a possible internal struggle, suggesting that she felt remorse or guilt, possibly due to the accident, but potentially related to other undisclosed issues as well. These statements show a young woman grappling with her actions and possibly battling a sense of responsibility that went beyond the immediate circumstances. The combination of these incidents, along with the stressors of her academic life and personal issues, points to a young woman buckling under the weight of multiple burdens. Her actions and reactions suggest a growing emotional distress, leaving us to question how much pain she might have been hiding. So now you're probably thinking, how does a girl who seems to have so much going for her just disappear without a trace? Well, that brings us to what is probably the most puzzling aspect of this case, February 9th, 2004. That morning, Maura emailed her professors, claiming there had been a family emergency and that she would be away from school for a week. But in reality, there was no emergency. Instead, Maura quietly packed up her dorm room, gathered some of her belongings, withdrew cash from an ATM, and bought alcohol and snacks. Without telling anyone her real plans, she got into her black Saturn sedan and started driving north. Her destination was never officially confirmed. Some believe she intended to escape to the White Mountains of New Hampshire, a place she had once vacationed with her family. Others suggest she didn't have a clear plan at all, only the overwhelming urge to run away from the pressures building in her life. Now, to understand how she disappeared without a trace, we need to look at the facts surrounding her vehicle. When Maura went missing, her car was found abandoned on a remote country road in Haverhill, New Hampshire. This location is about 30 miles north of where she disappeared and more than 100 miles from her home. Now, the most obvious explanation would be that she drove there on purpose, but there's a problem with that theory. The area in which her car was found is very rural. The closest gas station is approximately 8 miles away, and the nearest town, Lancaster, is roughly 15 miles away. Considering that her car was low on gas when it was found, and the lack of cell phone service in the area, it seems unlikely that she would have chosen this spot intentionally. This suggests that either her car ran out of gas or she lost control and crashed. But there is no evidence of a collision, and her car was parked legally on the side of the road. It's almost as if she simply drove until she couldn't go any further and then stayed somewhere else. However, there's more to the story. After her car was discovered, police searched the area for any signs of Maura, but found nothing. Her wallet, cell phone, keys, and nearly all of her clothing were still inside the vehicle. There were also no signs of a struggle or foul play. This is very strange because if she got lost or broke down and decided to walk to the nearest town for help, she wouldn't have left all her belongings in the car. Her actions here seem out of character for someone who was described as sensible and responsible. What makes this case truly haunting is that after her car was found, there were 0 confirmed sightings of Maura, despite extensive searches and media attention. To this day, nobody knows exactly what happened to her after she drove away from her university. Did she abandon her car and run away on foot? Did she find somewhere else to stay? Was she a victim of foul play? And if so, who could have done such a thing and why? These questions continue to elude investigators, leaving the case shrouded in mystery. In the annals of missing persons cases, few stories match the perplexing enigma that is the disappearance of Maura Murray. On the night of February 9, 2004, the life of the 21-year-old University of Massachusetts Amherst student took an abrupt and sinister turn. That night, instead of pursuing the usual joys of college life, Maura engaged in a series of peculiar activities. She sent emails to her professors informing them of a family emergency, withdrew a substantial sum of money from an ATM, and purchased a considerable amount of alcohol. These actions were not typical for the young woman known for her responsible nature and dedication to her studies. Adding another layer of mystery to this perplexing narrative, she then drove to a secluded area of New Hampshire, where her vehicle was later discovered abandoned in a snowbank. But despite no signs of a struggle or evidence of foul play, Maura herself was nowhere to be found. What makes this case particularly chilling is the complete absence of a motive or any clear indication of what transpired after her car crashed. Every piece of evidence seems to lead to more questions rather than providing clarity. This is a story not just of a missing person, but of an entire community grappling with unanswered questions and the haunting specter of what could have been. On the fateful day of February 2004, Maura Murray's demeanor was noticeably different, leaving those who interacted with her puzzled and somewhat concerned. Her roommates recalled that morning as unremarkable until they noticed that Maura was acting unusually subdued. Little did they know that this somber mood was the precursor to an unsettling chain of events. When a friend inquired about her spirits, Maura mentioned feeling down due to a forthcoming meeting with her academic advisor regarding unsatisfactory grades in some of her classes. This conversation hinted at a possible motive for the actions that followed. Perhaps Maura was overwhelmed by the pressure to perform well academically and had chosen to flee her responsibilities. Or maybe something more sinister was at play. As the day progressed, Maura Murray's strange behavior continued. First, she emailed several of her professors explaining that she needed a week off from classes due to a pressing family emergency. The cryptic message failed to provide any further details, leaving both her professors and roommates perplexed. One of her professors recalled the email stating, quote, "Hi, Professor. I am writing to let you know that I won't be able to make it to class today or tomorrow. I have a family emergency that I must deal with immediately, and I will be out of town for about a week. I sincerely apologize and hope to be back to class next week. Thank you for your understanding." Later that evening, surveillance cameras captured Maura withdrawing $279 from an ATM near her home, a significant portion of the money she had in her bank account. This financial transaction was not part of her usual routine, adding to the growing list of puzzling actions she had taken that day. Just hours after withdrawing the money, she visited a liquor store near her home. Here, security cameras recorded her purchasing 2 bottles of Remy Martin cognac, a bottle of Bailey's Irish Cream, and a box of red wine. These purchases seemed particularly odd, given that Maura was not known to be a heavy drinker, and she had previously informed her friends that she intended to cut back on alcohol consumption. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the landscape, Maura Murray's actions became even more perplexing. She drove north toward New Hampshire, venturing deep into the remote and winding roads of the White Mountains. Her destination was a secluded area many miles away, a spot that bore no immediate connection to any known friends or relatives. Approximately 1 hour into her drive, she parked her car and spent the next hour walking around the area. However, it remains unclear what prompted this excursion or what she hoped to accomplish during that solitary walk. At approximately 6:30 p.m., Maura returned to her car and began the journey that would lead to her disappearance. Approximately 20 minutes later, a motorist spotted her black Saturn sedan traveling south on Route 112, a narrow road bordered by dense forests. This marked the last confirmed sighting of Maura Murray, and the details surrounding her final moments remain shrouded in mystery. It was around 7:30 p.m. when local residents reported witnessing a black Saturn sedan crashing into a snowbank on the side of Route 112. Despite the apparent severity of the accident, which included the deployment of the car's airbags, there were no immediate signs of distress or injury. A passing school bus driver, David Severson, recounted his encounter with Maura at the crash site. He stated that he initially assumed the female driver might be intoxicated due to her bloodshot eyes. However, when he approached the car, Maura assured him that she was fine and declined his offer to call 911. According to Sarson, Maura claimed to have already contacted roadside assistance and expected help to arrive shortly. To ensure her well-being, the bus driver stayed for about 10 minutes, engaging in conversation with Maura. During this time, Maura allegedly asked Sarson not to report the accident to the police and instructed him to inform her mother that she was staying with a friend. At some point, Sarson noticed that Maura's hands were shaking and she appeared emotional, although it was not clear whether these tremors were due to anxiety or potential injuries sustained in the accident. Eventually, Sarge left the scene, believing that Maura would receive assistance soon. However, upon his return later that day, he discovered that her car was still there, and there was still no sign of help. Troubled by the situation, he called the police. Upon arriving at the scene, law enforcement officials discovered a bizarre array of items inside Maura's vehicle, including the recently purchased alcohol, maps, textbooks, and a stuffed animal. These seemingly random items offered no clear indication of what had transpired, leaving investigators baffled. Moreover, authorities learned that no call for roadside assistance had been made, challenging the account provided by Maura. Despite an extensive search involving helicopters and bloodhounds, Maura was nowhere to be found. Her disappearance was nothing short of a mystery. In the days following Maura's disappearance, investigators pursued numerous leads and theories, but each one seemed to lead them further into a labyrinth of confusion. One of the primary questions that arose was why Maura's car was located deep in a secluded and unfamiliar area. While the exact reason for her presence there remains unknown, investigators theorized that she may have purposely driven to the remote location to intentionally crash her car. This hypothesis was supported by the fact that the accident occurred on a straight stretch of road with no obstacles, suggesting that the collision may have been intentional. Furthermore, a witness reported seeing a black Saturn matching the description of Maura traveling at high speed in that area prior to the accident. This observation lent credence to the theory that Maura may have deliberately caused the crash. However, it is essential to acknowledge that there is no concrete evidence to support this or any other theory regarding Maura's disappearance. Theories aside, investigators were confronted with a disconcerting reality. The lack of physical evidence at the scene offered little insight into what had transpired. There were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses to a crime, and no indication of foul play. This absence of evidence left investigators grasping for answers. As time passed without any substantial leads, the case grew colder, and the hope of finding Maura alive diminished. One of the prevailing theories surrounding Maura Murray's disappearance posits that she staged the car accident and subsequently fled into the nearby woods. This theory is supported by the fact that no evidence of a struggle was found, and the possibility that she may have become disoriented or injured during the supposed accident. However, this hypothesis fails to explain why she would have left behind her belongings and why her body has never been recovered despite extensive searches. Another theory suggests that Maura may have been abducted by a passerby who witnessed the accident. This idea is plausible considering the remote location of the crash and the limited traffic in the area. However, there is no concrete evidence to support this theory, and it remains speculative. Adding another layer of complexity to this case, a significant development emerged when it was revealed that Maura had undergone counseling for depression and anxiety following the death of her father 2 years prior to her disappearance. Additionally, She had experienced academic difficulties and was facing the prospect of repeating her junior year at the university. These personal challenges may have contributed to her erratic behavior in the days leading up to the incident. Nevertheless, none of these factors provide a clear motive for her actions or her subsequent disappearance. 2 decades have passed since Maura Murray vanished into thin air, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and a community forever changed by her absence. The enduring mystery of her fate has sparked countless theories and investigations, but the truth remains elusive. In the years since her disappearance, her family has tirelessly advocated for her, keeping her memory alive and urging authorities to continue the search for answers. They have worked to ensure that the details of her case remain in the public sphere, hoping that someone with information may come forward. The unwavering support of her family has played a pivotal role in keeping Maura's story in the forefront of public consciousness, ensuring that her face continues to stare back from newspaper articles and that her name is still whispered in hushed tones around kitchen tables and in darkened rooms. Despite the passage of time, the profound impact of Maura's absence continues to reverberate. In conclusion, the disappearance of Maura Murray remains one of the most perplexing cold cases in recent history. The sequence of events leading up to her vanishing is a confusing puzzle with missing pieces, and the truth of what transpired on that fateful night may forever remain buried in the silence of the White Mountains. The weight of unanswered questions continues to burden her family and the community, serving as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring mystery of the human condition. As we ponder the enigmatic actions of Maura in the days leading up to her disappearance, we are confronted with the complexities of the human psyche and the profound impact of personal struggles. Her story underscores the importance of reaching out to those who may be silently battling their own demons, reminding us that even in the darkest moments, a helping hand or a listening ear can make all the difference. The disappearance of Maura Murray serves as a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of unanswered questions. 2 decades ago, on a frigid February night in 2004, the life of a young woman named Maura Murray took an unexpected turn. At around 9 p.m., she was involved in a minor car accident on a deserted country road in Haverhill, New Hampshire. By 9:37 p.m., her car was abandoned and without a trace. Her disappearance baffled authorities, captivated the public, and gave rise to endless theories, each trying to piece together what really happened to Maura that night. In this episode, we'll delve deep into the perplexing case of Maura Murray, exploring the various theories surrounding her disappearance and the enduring questions that continue to haunt this mystery. The puzzle of Maura's disappearance. On the evening of February 9, 2004, 21-year-old Maura Murray, a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, found herself stranded on a remote New Hampshire road following a car accident. She had been traveling home to visit her family after spring break when she collided with a tree on the side of Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. Despite the severity of the crash, her 1996 burgundy Saturn sedan remained on the road, albeit with front-end damage and its airbags deployed. A few hours later, a passing motorist noticed Maura's abandoned vehicle and contacted the police. Upon arrival, officers discovered signs of the accident and the scattered remnants of her shattered cell phone. They also found tire tracks indicating that Maura's car had skidded off the road and crashed. Yet despite this, there were no signs of injury or struggle, which was unusual given the force of the impact. Adding to the puzzle, witnesses reported seeing Maura's car moments before the accident, suggesting that she was likely still inside the vehicle. However, when the police opened the driver's side door, they found it empty. As minutes turned into hours and the search continued, the mystery deepened. There was no sign of Maura anywhere. She seemed to have evaporated into thin air. Her disappearance left everyone puzzled and desperate for answers. Theory number 1, the sudden departure. Initially, law enforcement officials believed that Maura, shaken by the accident, may have fled the scene on foot, and become lost or injured in the dense New Hampshire woods. This theory seemed plausible, given the limited visibility and the cold, dark conditions that prevailed that evening. Temperatures plummeted to -3 degrees Fahrenheit, making survival in the elements a daunting challenge. However, as the investigation progressed and no trace of Maura was found, the authorities began to consider alternative scenarios. Had she been abducted, or had the accident caused injuries that rendered her unconscious? As days turned into weeks and then months, the lack of concrete evidence made it difficult to pinpoint exactly what had happened to Maura. Was this a case of voluntary disappearance, accidental injury, or something more sinister? Each theory had its merits, but without substantial proof, the truth remained elusive. Theory number 2, the foul play angle. As the days passed without any significant leads, some started to suspect that foul play might have been a factor in Maura's disappearance. The location of her abandoned vehicle and the circumstances surrounding her sudden vanishing fueled these suspicions. One crucial piece of information came from the bus driver who had spotted Maura shortly after the accident. He described her as walking with a limp and appearing somewhat disoriented. Yet, despite his concern for her well-being, he decided not to intervene, believing that help was already on the way. This detail raised questions about the nature of her injuries and whether she had sought to leave the area after the crash. While the accident itself did not seem catastrophic, the possibility that someone had taken advantage of her disorientation and fled with her became a disturbing possibility. Investigators explored various angles, considering whether a stranger might have been involved or whether the accident had been deliberately caused by someone who knew Maura. However, without concrete evidence, these theories remained speculative. Theory 3, the accident fatality. Throughout the investigation, the possibility that Maura had accidentally wandered away from the scene after the crash and subsequently died remained a strong contender. The accident site was located on a desolate stretch of road surrounded by thick underbrush and wooded areas. It was conceivable that in a state of shock or disorientation, perhaps due to adrenaline or the cold, she had wandered off and become trapped in the unforgiving terrain. Furthermore, witnesses reported seeing a shadowy figure resembling Maura walking along Route 112 several minutes after the accident. While this sighting was not conclusive, it added credence to the theory that she had managed to leave the scene. Unfortunately, the harsh weather conditions and the lack of immediate search efforts meant that any chance of finding Maura alive diminished rapidly. As days turned into weeks and the hope of finding her alive faded, the focus shifted to locating her remains in order to bring closure to her family and loved ones. Theory number 4, the secret getaway. In the midst of the extensive search efforts, another intriguing theory emerged, adding another layer of complexity to the case. This theory suggested that Maura had intentionally disappeared, wanting to evade the stress and responsibilities of her life at the time. Several factors pointed toward this possibility. Before the accident, Maura had been facing challenges both personally and academically. She had recently used her roommate's credit card without permission and had been struggling with a medical pharmacology exam. These issues may have overwhelmed her, leading her to make a rash decision to run away. Furthermore, Maura had withdrawn a substantial amount of cash from her account, $280, suggesting that she had planned to be away for a while. Adding to the intrigue, she had sent emails to her professors informing them that she would be absent due to a family emergency, further fueling speculation that she had intentionally vanished. This theory was supported by witnesses who reported seeing a woman resembling Maura hitchhiking near the accident site. However, these sightings remained unconfirmed, leaving room for doubt. Was this a case of voluntary disappearance driven by stress, or had foul play been involved? The lack of clarity only deepened the mystery. Theory number 5, the unraveling truth. As the investigation continued, investigators began piecing together the events leading up to Maura's disappearance. forming a timeline that provided insight into her behavior and state of mind. Maura's car was discovered with signs of a recent repair, suggesting that she had driven it recently and may have known about its faulty condition. Her blood was not present in the car, nor were there any obvious signs of a struggle, leading investigators to believe that she had left willingly. The discovery of a note in her apartment suggesting she would be out for a couple of days further hinted at a planned absence. With no new developments in the case, Maura's family kept her memory alive, offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to her whereabouts. Despite extensive searches and numerous theories, the mystery of what truly happened to Maura Murray remains unsolved. Her disappearance continues to be a source of fascination and debate, with each passing year bringing new perspectives and analyses. The unsolved enigma. Today, almost 20 years later, the enigma of Maura Murray's disappearance continues to captivate the public imagination. Numerous theories have been proposed, yet none can definitively explain her vanishing act. Some believe that she staged her own disappearance to escape her problems. Others suspect foul play, pointing to the possibility of a random crime or the involvement of someone she knew. And still, others believe that the harsh weather conditions may have played a role, causing her to succumb to hypothermia after wandering away from her car. The case remains open, and law enforcement officials continue to explore any new leads or information that may come to light. The use of advanced technology and forensic science offers hope that one day it might shed light on this enduring mystery. As technology advances, the hope remains that new forensic techniques might be able to analyze the existing evidence in a different light, potentially providing insights that were previously out of reach. DNA analysis, for example, could be revisited and might yield unexpected results. Similarly, the reconstruction of the accident and the examination of Maura's car using modern techniques could reveal new details. The enduring impact. The disappearance of Maura Murray is not just a perplexing, unsolved mystery, it's a story that has touched the hearts of many. The impact of her sudden vanishing act can be felt deeply within her family and friends who continue to hold on to the hope of finding her, whether alive or otherwise. The case serves as a reminder of the fragility of life and the unpredictable nature of fate. It also highlights the importance of cherishing every moment and appreciating the preciousness of human connections. Conclusion. The case of Maura Murray remains a haunting enigma, a testament to the complexities of human behavior and the enduring power of unanswered questions. As we reflect on this perplexing case, we're reminded of the intricacies of human nature and the limits of our understanding. Maura's story is a somber reminder of the mysteries that continue to elude our grasp, urging us to appreciate the fragility of life and the profound impact of unanswered questions on those left behind. What do you think happened to Maura Murray? It's hard to believe that 20 years have passed since Maura Murray disappeared, and yet here we are, 2 decades later, still searching for answers in the icy grip of the White Mountains. On February 9, 2004, 21-year-old nursing student Maura Murray was driving south on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, after a weekend visit to the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. As the last leaves fell and winter tightened its icy grip on New England, Maura Murray embarked on a journey that would turn tragically silent. The year was 2004, and the 21-year-old nursing student was returning home after a long weekend at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. What began as a routine trip down Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, would soon become anything but. At approximately 6:45 p.m., Maura's 1996 Saturn sedan veered off the right shoulder of the desolate highway and slammed into a snowbank. Her car, although heavily damaged, remained partially on the road, its front end crumpled like discarded aluminum. Moments later, the young nursing student emerged from the wreckage, shaken but seemingly unharmed. At least that's what witnesses reported seeing. The dazed driver stumbled out of the car, looked around in a daze, and then walked away from the accident without calling for help. A truck driver who stopped to offer assistance recalled her bizarre behavior, describing how she seemed confused and kept asking where she was. As the sun dipped below the horizon and twilight settled over the mountains, Maura Murray, dazed and disoriented, walked away from the accident, disappearing into the gathering gloom. Her path led her along the dimly lit highway, away from the safety of the town and deeper into the unforgiving wilderness of northern New Hampshire. With each step, the chances of finding her dwindled, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a mystery that has endured for decades. The initial investigation into the crash revealed some disturbing details. Although the accident itself seemed minor, Maura's car had sustained significant damage, suggesting a forceful impact. Yet when emergency services arrived at the scene, they found no sign of the driver. The only clues to her whereabouts were the abandoned vehicle and the haunting sight of a lone ski hat lying on the snow-covered ground nearby. As the investigation continued, a witness came forward claiming to have seen Maura at the scene. But when questioned, their account offered more confusion than clarity. They had seen a young woman matching Maura's description, staggering away from the wreckage, but when asked to identify her, they couldn't be sure. The police followed up on numerous leads in the days following the accident, but each one ended in a dead end. There was no sign of foul play, but no plausible explanation for why a young woman would abandon her damaged car and walk away into the freezing New Hampshire night without seeking medical attention or notifying authorities. As the hours turned into days and days into weeks, the mystery deepened, leaving behind a heavy cloud of uncertainty and fear. In the absence of answers, rumors began to swirl, casting long shadows of doubt and speculation over the quiet mountain town. Theories abounded, but none could withstand close scrutiny. Was this a case of amnesia? Had Maura, perhaps due to a head injury, lost memory of who she was and where she was going? Or was there something more sinister at play? Could this seemingly random accident have been a carefully orchestrated plan gone awry? While these questions echoed through the community, the investigation faced another hurdle. Despite the extensive media coverage and numerous tips, no one came forward with any concrete information about Maura's whereabouts. The silence was deafening, amplifying the sense of dread and despair that had settled over the small town. As the seasons changed and the winter snows melted into spring, the hope of finding Maura alive faded, replaced by the grim reality of a missing persons case. The once vibrant young woman, full of promise and potential, became a face in a missing poster, her smile frozen in time, a stark reminder of a life cut short. But the silence wasn't just outside the Murray family. Within the tight-knit community of Haverhill, whispers became hushed conversations, then stilled altogether. People stopped talking in hushed tones, afraid to disturb the slumbering mystery lest it awaken further tragedy. Even the most mundane topics carried an undercurrent of unease. Children playing on the street, cars driving slowly through the quiet neighborhoods, all were scrutinized for any sign of Maura, fueling the town's collective paranoia and turning every shadow into a potential threat. Fear permeated the everyday, making normalcy feel like a luxury they no longer deserved. In the aftermath of Maura's disappearance, Haverhill became a town divided. Some residents blamed themselves for not coming forward with information sooner, while others criticized the police for not doing enough to find her. This simmering discontent eventually boiled over, igniting anger and resentment among the townspeople. Accusations flew, relationships fractured, and the sense of unity that had once defined Haverhill was torn to shreds. In the wake of such a traumatic event, the town's resilience was tested, revealing the fragility of human nature and the devastating consequences of fear and uncertainty. Amid the whispers and second-guessing, a portrait of Maura Murray emerged. She was described as a bright, bubbly young woman who was eager to start her nursing career. Friends and family remember her as someone who always had a smile on her face and a kind word for everyone. Growing up in a close-knit family in Conway, New Hampshire, Maura was known for her infectious laughter and compassionate nature. Throughout high school, she was involved in various activities, including skiing and cheerleading, showcasing her adventurous spirit and dedication to those around her. After graduating in 2002, Maura enrolled in the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where she studied nursing, a testament to her desire to help others. But it wasn't just her academic pursuits that made her stand out. Maura's passion for animals, particularly dogs, was evident in the way she cared for them. Her love for animals was a reflection of the kind, gentle soul that those who knew her cherished. However, just months before the fateful car accident that would change everything, Maura's demeanor shifted. She began to withdraw from her friends, becoming quieter and more introverted. This sudden change alarmed those who knew her well, hinting at a darkness that had crept into her life, but which no one could have imagined would soon consume her. In the midst of grief and desperation, the Murray family clung to their faith and each other. Fred and Candace Murray, Maura's parents, refused to give up hope. Fred, a truck driver by trade, became a tireless advocate for his daughter, appearing on national television programs to keep the case in the public eye. Candace, a registered nurse, channeled her experience in the medical field to assist in the investigation, poring over every detail of her daughter's disappearance. Through it all, their bond as a couple and as parents remained steadfast, a beacon of strength in the darkest of times. Their unwavering love for Maura was evident in the way they spoke about her, keeping her memory alive by sharing stories of her childhood and the joy she brought to their lives. Their determination to find their daughter never wavered, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Meanwhile, the investigation took an unexpected turn when searchers discovered a previously unnoticed detail at the accident site, a set of tire tracks. These tracks suggested that Maura's car hadn't been the only vehicle on the road that night. Could this be a breakthrough? Had she been in an accident with another driver who fled the scene? Or was this a red herring, leading investigators down a false trail? Hope and skepticism battled within the investigation team. As the inquiry into the tire tracks intensified, it became clear that they were from a state police cruiser. This revelation not only raised questions about what the police presence was doing on that secluded stretch of highway, but also whether there was a connection between law enforcement and Maura's disappearance. The possibility that the police were involved sent shockwaves through the community, turning suspicion onto those who were supposed to be protecting them. The investigation took on a whole new urgency as officials scrambled to explain the presence of the cruiser and its possible link to Maura's disappearance. The credibility of the investigation was called into question, and trust in authority eroded. As the scandal unfolded, the small town became a battleground of conflicting narratives, leaving the residents uncertain of what to believe. The discovery of the tire tracks not only failed to bring them closer to finding Maura, but also threatened to tear apart the very fabric of their community. Over the years, countless theories about what happened to her have emerged. Did Maura stage the car accident to escape her life? Did she run away to start anew? Was she the victim of foul play? Perhaps she encountered someone while walking along the highway, or maybe she stumbled upon something she shouldn't have. As the years pass, the Murray family remains resolute in their pursuit of justice. They've established the Find Maura Murray Foundation to keep their daughter's memory alive and to raise awareness about missing persons cases. Fred, Candace, and their remaining children continue to advocate for their sister, hoping to one day uncover the truth behind her disappearance. So what do you think happened to her? This is CaseVault, where every mystery has a story. And this is the story of Maura Murray, a young woman who vanished without a trace after crashing her car into a snowbank in Haverhill, New Hampshire in February of 2004. The police found her car, but they didn't find Maura. Maura's case has a lot of unanswered questions. Like, why did she crash her car? Was it an accident, or was someone else behind the wheel? And where is she now? Is she alive or is she dead? This is CaseVault, where every mystery has a story, and Maura's story is one that I can't stop thinking about. It's one of those cases that keeps me up at night wondering what could have happened. If you want to hear more cases like this, subscribe to CaseVault and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Because somewhere out there, someone knows the truth, and together we'll keep searching.